I am honored to be sitting here today with a friend who has helped me understand what it means to live a life of service. You have modeled that for me, and I could not be here expressing my love and my sincere fact that you've challenged me. All right, you can call all you want to. I'm not going to stop. But you've never, ever not said, let's do it. And when I thought we were slowing down, you said, let's look at a campaign that's going to be millions. I said, going to be what?
But it was Jenny that was the board president that got us to the Capitol campaign. And we're an organization that a lot of people want to serve. And we're lucky to have had that kind of reputation and that kind of investment of time and talent and treasures in the organization.
Well, I have said, and I'll say it for posterity, that you could have been the CEO of any company in Birmingham. There's no doubt in my mind. All the strengths you have, but that you stayed here and befriended me. And bailed me out a lot.
And likewise.
Yeah, but I'm drifting here. But because an organization has to have a person with vision and that understands that, I mean, you've said this as long as I've known you, it's one thing to hand out things to people. It's another thing to teach them how to do the things so that we don't have to hand out. But more than that, to try to create a world where you don't need it.
When I came in '79, most of the board members were little blue-haired ladies of the church that had really struggled to stay in business during all the social dynamic changes that were going on as we integrated early and our wealthy patrons left us who weren't progressive in our minds. And it would have been really easy for Ethel Gibson and her board members to say, we've tried, it's been hard enough, we need to leave. But they didn't. And then United Way in 1985 called and said, Suzanne, we don't have domestic violence services in any of our United Way portfolios. Do you have a relationship with them? I said, I do. And so we started talking internally before we met Jenny about maybe this would be a good fit. Well, but you know what we've learned, Jenny, in our DNA of this organization is that when the good ladies of the YW bought this building in 1948, it was the Dixie Carlton Hotel. It went on up for sale. The YW had been homeless for a year because our former building used to be where City Hall is. And City Hall took it through eminent domain. And we have plans that we were going to build closer downtown, and this building came up for sale. And the good ladies of the YWCA said, we want to buy it. And if you remember our history, women couldn't make real estate decisions when the organization was formed beyond $500. And we had to have male trustees approve us spending more than $500 in real estate. So our board president then was Mrs. Harwell G. Davis, Lena Vale Davis, and the fabulous women of the YWCA raised $1 million in about a month. And even though the guys had said, the trustees had said, well, go ahead, but y'all won't be able to do it. So it's in our DNA, and we didn't even know it. You're the rare exception. I mean, you were been on the board 4 years and you were president. Usually, you're on the board for at least 8, 9, 10 years here before that position opens up for you. And then too, along the way, I think we've been lucky enough to form a junior board and find some fabulous women and develop leadership there. And the last 3 board presidents have all come from the junior board. So I've been lucky as an administrator, like I have with you, to have over a 20-year relationship with these folks.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Well, and you look at who they are now.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, the commitment that we've had now in our latter years to say maybe we're handing the torch. We're holding it.
We have handed it, right?
But we've handed it off to people that still understand what this is all about. And it's just pretty exciting.
So in serving the woman, often we serve her family, and that, because if you leave part of that out of the equation, you really haven't helped that total family get to the place that they need to be to reach their full potential. So I love telling the story of when we took in the Family Violence Center. It had the Family Violence Project. It had 4 bedrooms. It now has 11. But out of that, part of the way we've responded to emerging needs is from the shelter. Then there was a woman that had 8 kids, and where do you place her? And housing authority couldn't help her, so we said, well, we just better knock some holes in some walls and make a big apartment, and that's how transitional housing started. And then, oh my gosh, what do we do with these kids during the day? Well, we've got a daycare here, let's put them in our child care center. Well, on paper that worked. They needed specialized care. It wasn't fair to the ongoing classroom to have that child. And so that was in 1989. You were the president then. We started our homeless daycare, our child care center, in this room where we are now. The toilets were over there. And then somebody said to me, well, what are you doing about the older homeless brothers and sisters that are in elementary school? So then we started after school tutoring for homeless kids. And then people said, well, how are you helping them in court? So we had court advocates. And then out of that came court lawyers. And then came counseling. And then came transitional housing. And
then career skills.
Right. Leadership. Yeah. A YWCA colleague that was on the national board with me in Chicago, we had a meeting here. And she visited her aunt that lived in Birmingham. And then she said to her aunt, she said, now I need you to take me to the YWCA downtown, because that's where my meeting is. She'd come in a day early to be with her aunt. And she said, do you know how to get there? And her aunt said, oh yeah, I know how to get there. She said, really, what do you know about the YW? She said, because I stayed in their shelter for 2 months. And she had no idea this was going on in her aunt's life.
But it also takes a boatload of money.
Well, I like to say, it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes capital to raise a village.
But I'll tell you, what you begin to see and what you have helped us deal with is how many other nonprofit organizations want to replicate what we do. And that's fine. That's the greatest compliment anyone can pay us, but we just got to be that much better at it.
That's right. And we got to be there first.
Right.
Because if you only got so many dollars, we want to make sure we get them first.
Yeah. Well, and if we see that there's too much duplication, then we've got to think out of the box. Swimming pool.
Closing that swimming pool.
It was huge.
It was huge.
And we had to walk so delicately.
But I think we've handled it really well, and because I was lucky enough to serve on the national board, I've had a nice national purview view of how pool closings have gone, and not all of them have gone as smoothly as ours. But you were very sensitive, particularly to the elderly members, and we gave lots of notice. We also bought 6 months and paid for them to go to the YMCA.
Right.
And so,
and we left the pool in there. We told them it's there. We just filled it up.
Right.
Right. Whether we could ever reinstate it, we never would. Because look at what it's doing now with all of our daycare and incredible work. But at least we didn't blast it out.
Jenny talked about how hard it was to close the swimming pool. And a lot of people have a lot of fond memories of our swimming pool. We walked away from all of our aquatics and fitness programs when we decided to really start meeting some very critical needs in this community. That was a hard decision for me because I'm an old PE teacher, and I really believe in the power of healthy bodies and swimming and exercise. However, this was a much more critical need. And as an administrator, our old swimming pool was costing us a boatload of money. So when we talk about laps, we're recruiting you to rock our babies. When you hear us talking about warming up for the race, it's the biggest race of all. It's the human race, and that's our social justice programs. If you hear us talking about weightlifting, we're asking you to help carry someone's load. what a fabulous woman she was. And it was her desire in 1903, when the YWCA was formed, to provide, I love her words, this is her 1903 language, to help women in adverse circumstances of small salary. Women in adverse circumstances and small salary. So boy, have we stayed true to that mission and that vision. I also want to add that the other part of that was so that women in adverse circumstances of small salary would stay sweet and womanly. Well, you know, it's kind of hard to be sweet and womanly if you're in the middle of an adverse circumstance with a small salary. But that was Maybelle's vision, and we have stayed true to it. I think along the way we've helped some women remain sweet and womanly in the midst of some of the most horrific situations, thanks to the safety net that the YWCA provides.